We on? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Faith Place Bible Institute Sunday School Experience. This month, we're going to be talking about kind of a dual subject, mothers, because Mother's Day is this month. So, um, we're talking about that. Our objective is, even though this is not Women's Month, but like I say, Mother's Day occurs during this time, we cannot discuss mothers without first speaking about women. So this month we will be talking about women and mothers. You know, I have a sister-in-law who, her birthday is in June, and she will celebrate every day of June for her birthday. If I don't care if it's a piece of candy, she'll say, or ice cream cone, and most of the time she's on everybody's list for free. I gotta learn that. And so every day she's gonna get something to celebrate her birthday. So that's what we're going to do this month. We're going to take every Sunday to celebrate mothers and women, because you can't be one without the other. So, I mean, that's just plain and simple. And that just kiboshes all that other stuff people talking about. Our scripture this month is Proverbs 31:10, NASB. An excellent wife, who can find her? For her worth is far above jewels. Good morning, Mitzi. You know, women, we wear many hats that represents the various and multiple roles that we portray on a regular basis. Proverbs 31 woman is defined by her fear of the Lord, serving as a model of godly character rather than unattainable perfection. The Bible don't say that we have to be perfect. He says, mark the perfect man. It don't say be that perfect man, because we're fallible. You know, my mother used to say, why do you think they put erasers on the other side of the pencil? Because you will make mistakes. Key qualities include being trustworthy, industrious. Good morning, Sister Hines. You're on your way, okay. And generous while managing her home, family, and finances with wisdom. She is characterized by strength, dignity, and positive outlook on the future. Based on the Proverbs 31:10-31, these are the core qualities that I will be speaking about today. Fear of the Lord. The foundation of her character is her devotion and reverence for God, prioritizing spiritual beauty over outward charm. We're going to be doing something really special this month. Might as well. We're going to be doing something really special this month, so I'll get into it a little later, because, like I say, this is Mother's Month. So they deserve it. Not saying that, you know. They're trustworthy and supportive. She is a faithful partner who brings her husband good and not harm, and is trusted implicitly by her family. She's industrious and hardworking. She works eagerly with her hands, manages household tasks, and is not idle. She's wise and discerning. She speaks with wisdom and offers kind, faithful instruction. You know, whether we're working in the home or outside the home, we wear a lot of hats. And we have to have this foundation in order to accomplish all that we can accomplish. Because if you don't have a firm foundation, everything falls. You think about building a house. If that foundation is not, when I went to Carver High School, and the area where the science department is, you know, it was built on a swamp. And especially during rainy season, the floors would be wet. And they said that when they were building it, they did not take the pillars down to bedrock. So slowly it's falling so the pillars can hit bedrock, which meant the foundation is moving. And if you don't build on that good foundation, whether storms come, literally and figuratively, it will negatively affect you.
As human beings, we do have to have a foundation, and we can see how that has affected us positively and negatively.
Mm-hmm.
We can see in the world where those of us that did not come and did not have a good foundation from the home,
Right.
it does impact how every
Mhm.
decision that we'll ever make
Mm-hmm.
in our lives, because most of the time, as you know, that when we have experienced trauma, and if you are a human being on this planet, you have experienced some kind of trauma. And when we
Right.
look through the lens of trauma, everything is affected by that.
Yes.
The relationships we form or not form, the decisions that we make,
It affects your worldview.
it affects our world.
It affects your worldview. And working with kids in trauma, I thought I took on it myself as to try to help them see a different outlook. You know, just because that was your beginning does not mean it dictates the rest of your life. Good morning, Mother Smith. No evangelist. So it does affect everything. That foundation affects everything. And you don't realize, sometimes if they're not cognizant of it, they don't realize that the things they do and the experiences, how they receive things. And when you do therapy, you don't realize when everything fall into place and you like, I never thought that affected that. Because when you think of a foundation, when you build on this and then you build on top and you keep building on top, if anything underneath is damaged or not put in properly, can affect everything that comes on top. It can topple the whole thing.
It will.
Yes.
It won't. It might not. It will
yes.
affect everything.
Yes.
And as human beings, we don't realize that until many times until much later
Exactly.
in life. We don't recognize it as
Right.
little children. It will be like a symptom of a cold. When that virus, I read years ago that when a cold comes and you get that first symptom, that virus has already been in your body for 7 days.
Oh, wow.
And so now here
Mhm.
comes that symptom. And the symptom is different for everybody.
Right.
You know, some people get a tickle in the back of their throat, depending on
Mhm.
what strain of the cold virus it is. You'll get a tickle in the back of your throat, maybe your eyes will water, maybe you'll cough, but it's already been in your body.
It's already there.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay attention, because, you know, I remember when I was younger, I noticed that when I would have an asthma attack, I'll start scratching my neck.
Mm-hmm.
And let me say antihistamine. It's the histamine.
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized, be cognizant that I'm scratching my neck,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they used to have this little bitty pill,
Mm-hmm.
and I can break that little bitty pill in half, and the asthma attack won't come.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wait, it's coming, and it's going to come before us. But that's why I'm going to speak on that later this month about, and we always talk about it takes a village. That's where that village comes in handy. Because if you grow up in chaos, you don't know calm. You don't know peace. You don't know, and you don't know that that's what your foundation is irregular. You don't know that this is not everybody, because that's what you know. That's what you know. So, unfortunately, a lot of people, good morning, Sister Jackie, you don't know how that will affect your everyday functioning. Good morning, Deacon. What should I say, both deacons? So it's, Sister Jackie, oh, you saw, we were talking about women. Since this is Mother's Month, Mother's Day month. I'm claiming it for the whole month. So, I mean, why not? They deserve it. I should say 1 week or 1 day for every hat that they wear. Come on, okay. I said what I said. Wise and discerning, she speaks with wisdom and offers kind, faithful instruction. We spoke about this a couple of months ago about because their families or generations past when they weren't emotional, outward emotional, and it can affect you how you present yourself because you can come off looking like you're cold, but inside you're not. You just don't know how to express it. I remember I said something and my mother says, wow, you're just bold with it and open with it. I'm like, why not? You know, I'm a woman. You look at me, you know I'm a woman. So it is what it is. And if you confound it, that's on you. She's generous and compassionate. She opens her arms to the poor and helps the needy. Resourceful manager. She manages finances well, buys property, and builds a business. You see, you know, back in the day when and it's sad that we have to say back in the day, when you see a kid that's out there and that's in need, it didn't matter if that wasn't your child, your family, you straightened that kid up and you gave them what they needed. You know, sometimes kids need, and my mother used to say, there's no such thing as a bad kid, they need love. And some of the, what you would call the worst kids, we can call her mama. And they just need somebody. And I think about my relationships with the kids that I was involved with. Kids are very discerning. God put that in them from babies. If you listen to your kids, I told a friend of mine, pay attention to your daughter. She's trying to tell you something, but she didn't, but that's another story. Kids are very discerning. And when they know that somebody's in their corner, for real, they know that. They know that you're genuine and you genuinely want them to do well. Yeah, I fussed at them. I figure like this, if you can beg me for money, I can fuss at you. Well, whether you ask for money anyway, I'm still going to fuss. Especially, what do you do with the teenagers? I lecture them. That's one thing teenagers hate. So I'm going to give them that. Strong and dignified, she is clothed with strength and dignity and faces a future without fear. Caring for her family, she prepares food and provides clothing and ensures her household is well taken care of. Sometimes when you look back and you're like, how did they do it? Because they had less. And you're thinking, with all that I have, how were they able to do all that they did?
Well, Proverbs is written by who? Book of Proverbs. Who's the author? I'm asking a question.
Proverbs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Solomon.
I knew.
Yeah.
I just wanted her
Wisdom. Wisdom.
to say it. Yeah, okay. So here's Solomon, and he had how many wives? And he had how many concubines?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he learned something.
Yes.
So
was the wisdom there before, during, or after? Maybe he was wise before, but he grew in his wisdom after.
well, you know, God gives us what we need.
Yeah.
He gives us, because we
Yeah.
all started the same way.
Yeah.
And so he gave us what we needed. He one thing I've learned about God, he's tailor-made. He tailor-made each one of us
Yeah.
as to what we were going to be and
Right.
what we're going to have. And so when we compare them, the people during that time, to ourselves, they actually had more than what we have.
Exactly.
We just have, everything is in our face now because
Yes.
of technology and things that have moved.
Yes.
So they worked the earth.
We have stuff.
Yeah. They worked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They worked harder than we did.
Yes.
Because they had to work the ground, grow the food, harvest the food and all this without any type of machinery.
Yes.
No machinery was
Yes.
ever
No
used.
resources they did.
No. So
Yes.
they actually worked harder than we
Mhm.
did. We do. we have it easy now because here's knowledge has increased, and they make
Good morning.
machinery to do this and do that, and so I could take that what they said. Okay, you said that we supposed to be doing this. Okay, I understand that. The problem comes in at is that people idea society has changed the way we look at things, and so because society has changed the way we look at things, then now it's not like that anymore.
Right. Good morning.
That's why
Evangelist.
things is like, I remember back in the day, old school and all this kind of
Right.
The word old school in my day was called old fashioned.
Yes.
Same concept, it was just
Yes,
old fashioned.
different title.
Different title, same thing. And so we look at things, and because knowledge has increased and because times are different, we've accepted and acclimated to whatever whatever is being dictated in
Right.
the world. And so it seems like, because we can look at the news and hear the news and see different things, that many women, many mothers are not like that anymore.
No.
What you've just read.
No.
They're not like that.
No.
So, unfortunately.
Because like when I was being the youngest, when the rest of them were in school, while they were in school, I wasn't sitting in front of the television. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a pencil and a paper. And my mother was doing what she was doing in the kitchen, because everything was in the kitchen. The wash machine was in the utility, and everything, whatever she was doing, she didn't put me in front of the television. So when I finally went to Head Start, they called it back then, the teacher told me, she kept ignoring me. She says, well, Kathy, you know everything. Because my sister taught me how to tell time. And, I learned I had 4 siblings over me. So, and like I say, there was always a pencil and a paper in front of me. And that helped build my foundation. And I remember when I was young, my mother says, okay, it's time. She said, you don't have to go to bed, you gotta get away from me. So I remember sitting in my bed with my book, and it helped build something in you. We're talking about, like I said, we're talking about mothers, because we hijacking the whole month for Mother's Day. So we're celebrating Mother's Day for the month, and since we're talking about mothers, we have to talk about women. So, because they go hand in hand. Not every woman is a mother, but she has something valuable in her to share, because it does take a village. Mr. Jackie, did you want to say?
No, I was going to say that there are women who don't have kids that absolutely advocate for other children, and I love that, because there are times when those kids, they're going to need someone. Even with having a parent, they still sometimes they need, just like another perspective. And I think those women who still have everything that another woman would have,
Right. Good
is
morning.
able to help
Exactly.
those children. I love that about those women.
Because I was basically, I was a child advocate, and I was the voice for that child. And if that child needed anything, I made sure that whatever was available, I made sure that they have it. Because like I told, working at DCFS, I told, we are it. They can't call parents. We are it. And I told one of my supervisors, if one of your daughters needed something, would you tell them no? Would you turn your head? I'm not doing that. So we need to, and it builds, if like we've always said, it takes a village. If a child has a village, imagine the impact on that child's future. Because one person don't have it all. You can be the most amazing mother, but you don't have everything. There's somebody else who can add. There's someone else who can add to it. Because, like I say, when I went to college, I didn't know anyone who went to college. So I had to learn fast on what it's all about and how, because even when I went down there, my roommate and I, we were trying to figure out how this thing works. How the class schedule, good morning, mother, how the class schedule works, how everything. We were like, do we just take every class? We didn't understand. And we didn't even, so we had people who would say, okay, this is how it works. Especially when I even spoke on, I didn't realize in my, naivete that people's biases can be so great that it would inhibit their doing their job. My natural born tan got in the way of you looking at me and doing your job as a guidance counselor. So I had to figure things and learn things on my own. But I also wanted to include, I'll speak on this later because Deacon Wiley we're going to have him expound on it. The last Sunday of this, first of all, we want you to get involved. This is not, I'm not lecturing. This is, participation. And so we're going to talk about women in the Bible who have not been, is not the forefront of everything. And so if you know of one, if you think of one, speak on it. Also, we're talking about the unsung heroes. If you have an unsung hero in your life, from your childhood, wherever, who's a woman, tell us about it. So at the end of the last Sunday of this month, we're going to have a presentation on, so we want you to, if you want to celebrate your mother or like we're going to talk about other mother or somebody that you look up to, admire, who had an impact on your life, we want you to give us, do something so we can do a presentation, because we're going to end this month out with the presentation, celebrating mothers. So, and those who had an impact in your life. But like I say, if you can think of some, because there's a lot of women in the Bible who are not spoken of, or who don't have the fanfare that others have, who don't have, everything, chapters about them, what books about them. So that's what we're talking about. She is ultimately praised for her character, her fear of the Lord, rather than her appearance or productivity. My mother grew up under Bishop Ford, so you understand that. Because she said when my grandfather was sick, Bishop Ford came to the house and prayed for him. So she decided, when she had kids, she wasn't going to subject us to what she went through. But we weren't in church 24/7, but taught us the word. I have never heard of "Now I lay me down to sleep" until I was grown older, and hearing people on TV saying them, like, she taught us the Lord's Prayer. That was our nighttime prayer. And so you don't, like we were saying earlier, your foundation affects everything. Your decisions, which way you want to raise your kids. Sometimes you say, you think about, I'm not going to raise my kids like my parents did me, but then you find yourself saying some of the things or doing some of the things that, yes, because, newfangled sometimes. What's that, soft parenting? Yes, the gentle parenting.
Yeah, that's some
Good morning.
foolishness. That's just some foolishness.
Because some kids, some kids parenting, like I said, just because you didn't have them don't mean that you don't know stuff. I didn't believe in, me personally, belts, spanking. But I do believe in checking them from the beginning. Yeah, they're beautiful. They are so cute. The things they do is just so precious. But you got to check them.
And the Bible, the same Solomon who wrote the book of Proverbs, he also says, if you beat, B-E-A-T, your child, you save his soul from hell. It says that. It does
Yes,
not
it does.
say. It does not say spare the rod, spoil the child. It
Right.
doesn't say that
Right.
in that context. Because here's one part over here, another part over here. But we have to discipline.
You have to.
Whatever the
You have to.
You don't necessarily. Every child doesn't need
A thing.
a spanking.
Exactly.
I have two great nephews that they have two different moms, but they have the same dad. And he raised them. His older son, he never had to do anything but
Right.
talk to him.
Right.
But he knew his younger son at 2. He said, "I'm gonna have to punch him in the throat." He knew that.
Right.
So
right.
you there is, and even in the field that we're in, when I come across different kids, when I meet a family, and I've learned that many of the kids, there's a speech deficit, and so I've learned that when the boys can't speak, they're very aggressive, especially toward their mother.
Not just this, if they have, proper speaking, but learning and reading. And
Right.
It does affect their
Right.
Behavior.
And so in that, like I said, I've learned that they not all,
Right.
but most are very aggressive, and so they will, because they can't get the words out of their head to come out of their mouth, they're aggressive toward the mother especially. And I remember there was one family that the little boy because now post COVID, I don't have to go into the home, so here's Zoom when I meet with them. And the first thing I noticed was that he had a little chair that had his name on it. And so, not that that was a bad thing, but him sitting in the chair, he had his leg thrown over the chair like I'm king. That clicked with me right away. I said, "Oh, okay." And so here's the therapist, and they're like, "Oh no, we're not. We're just going to recommend speech. We're not going to recommend occupational therapy." Well, along the way, and they said, "Well, sometimes he hits, da 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 da." And so along the way, when the speech therapist came in, they came back and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to have to get occupational therapists in there because, he's really hitting his mom." And I remember during the meeting, the dad said, "Oh, he bit me on the shoulder one time, but he was just playing." I said to myself, he'd have got his teeth knocked out. What you mean you going to bite me on, And so sometimes I've learned that sometimes the dads, especially if they're in the home, they just think, "Oh, he's just a boy." And so this was, accepted behavior. But initially, we did have to get him a diagnosis, and so he was on the spectrum. And so many families don't want to hear that,
Right.
in the field that I'm in. But of course, you can recognize. I know in my own family, my mother recognized who was going to be okay, because we all got our butt beat.
Mama
Say
knows
that.
their kids.
Absolutely.
Mama
She
knows their
recognized
kids.
who was
They're-
gonna
they-
need a lot.
They
and
the
who was gonna need
psychologists.
a little.
Yes, they know their kids.
Yes, yes.
Because I had a mother. She said, I have never heard my mother say, "Wait till we get home. Wait till your father gets home." She said, "Where you act a fool is where I act a fool." She never needed daddy. Now, if he found out that she had to do X, Y, Z, you probably got it again.
And the majority of stuff is because, as Evangelist Paula stated, when it goes unchecked, when we don't say anything, or when we just dismiss it,
Yeah.
that's the worst a kid will get. And then when they get like that, we wondering, you done lost your mind.
Right.
But it's not that. We didn't check it.
Right.
We
You
didn't let them know that it was wrong to do. And so now, guess what they do? They get older doing the wrong thing.
To train up a child, it not, to me, okay, you're talking spiritually, but in everything, you train
Yes.
your children. Because like I said, when I was little, when my mother had to go to the doctor's office or wherever, I was with her. And she never brought a toy. She never bought a magazine, a book, or anything. I had to sit there quiet, however long as she sat there quiet. And God help me if I'd have moved and run around the place.
It's that pinch that
We
got
would
me
never been,
right up
you would never met me. Taking me to the grocery store. She took 5 kids to the grocery store, and I can promise you, only reason we may have taken something off the shelf was because she told us so. We didn't touch anything. And if she had to go and look for any one of us, I always joke about it. Jesus would have to tell his father, I got to go down there because Rita's about to take one of them out, and that's not their time to come. So, you know, when they're babies, they are so precious and beautiful, and you just want to love them up. But you still have to say no. They learn. They learn very easily. Exactly. We did. Because we knew, you know, don't test mama. You didn't, you know, you of course you know you don't want to test daddy. But we knew don't test mama. So, but I had to tell a friend of mine one day, because at home, her daughter would take a bite of food and run around the house. And we were out in, I think it was Wendy's or something. We was eating in. And she did the same thing. She was getting on people's nerves. And I said, she's your precious, precious. She's not precious to them. Because I looked at some of them, they want to snatch her. Because you want peace. You know, you don't want some kid running around and all up on you, and, you know.
And you never want to be that woman that doesn't do it, that doesn't say what needs to be said.
Right.
You don't want to be that person, well, you know, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to let them do what they're doing. I don't want to be that person. I want to let them know, listen, you know, that ain't right.
Because we were out again together, and her child threw a tantrum. And she's of a lighter complexion than her mother. And everybody looked at me, I'm like, your child. That's not mine. Your child. Because I came from a different stock that's like, they don't play. I can love you, I can spoil you, and I believe every kid needs to be spoiled. But there's the word no that they also need to hear. And there's nothing wrong with that. Exactly. Women I consider special for their unique combination of nurturing, strength, emotional intelligence, and resilience. They often excel at multitasking and building deep social connections, balancing professional and personal lives while showing empathy. Their ability to lead, care for others, and adapt through challenges makes them significant in both family and society. Mothers do carry a lot. I was in we were having a physics exam, and that was the most fun exam that I ever had in my life. I think it was the final, because we had the exams, and we were sitting there like, what the world? What is? So the teacher finally admitted, oh, the exams don't mean anything. So I just gave you, he said, the office says I have to give an exam, so I'm just giving an exam. Because we were trying to figure out what this got to do with what we learned and what we talking about in class. So when we got that knowledge, we were just doing A, B, C on the exam sheet. You know, we were just making drawings and stuff. So we were having a big discussion about mothers. And this one guy says, my mother's shoe can turn corners. And that shoe will find you. I don't care if you in another room down the hall or whatever. That shoe gonna find you and knock you upside your head. They were powerful back then. So, because like you said, it was a different time, and times were like they're looking like now, where they worried about their kids, so they had to prepare them for going out there, and because they want you to come home. What they say, if you don't whoop your kids or you don't check your kids, the police will.
Yes.
You know, because they want to make sure that you have everything you need, whether even if because you know, back in the day, most of these parents weren't well educated. They were educated with life and with spirituality. I met this woman, she said she didn't know how to read, but God taught her how to read the Bible. And so there's a lot of the way back where the parents may had a third grade education or fifth grade, you know, sixth, whatever. They didn't go to college or high school. That was a big thing if your kid went to graduate high school. But the parents didn't, so they wanted you know, as a parent, you want more for your kids. And you taught them whatever life skills they needed to navigate themselves through this life. Because you will face, you know, people like, oh, it's not the same anymore. There's no, you know, I'm not gonna say the word. There's no that going on. It's equal. It's put on some new glasses, sweetheart, because you're not seeing what you're seeing. But when start showing the truth, some people don't know how to act because they were never taught how to navigate through that. You know, I experienced it, you know, and I remember we were at Slices of Memory. We were at when Martin Luther King spoke here, and we were at that rally, and it was just so many people, but what we went through, what they taught us, was valuable because you never thought don't want your kids to experience. Because when we moved, we moved, my siblings, some of them went to Finger High School. And my mother grew up on the south side. She went to Finger High School. And she says, I never wanted my kids to go to Finger High School because my mother had a mouth. She was very quick. So the teacher asked her, you know, they were talking about race. So the teacher asked her, well, Rita, what race do you belong to? My mother being my mother, named Rita, if you take that word name and you realize who she says, I belong to the human race. What race do you belong to? And she didn't appreciate that response. So when my sister went to Finger, same experience. They didn't want to let go of that behavior. They didn't want, and that area was changing over to including more blacks. So there was a tension going on, and they had to do what they had to do to get the equality. And that's why when you training your children, you're trying to give them what they need. Evangelist Denise, you kind of quiet back there, and that's not, yes. Do you have anything to add? Not yet, okay. Good morning, Evangelist. So like I said, we're talking about Mother's Day, which is next Sunday, but I'm taking on the tradition of my sister-in-law, who celebrates the whole month of June for her birthday. So we're celebrating the whole month of May for Mother's Day. So you can't talk about mothers without talking about women and the brilliance that's in women, because we have to have so much with what we have to deal with. We're a special species. We are what's in us.
When you were talking about Finger, so I went to a Catholic school. So you can imagine I had to go to Finger in sophomore year. I was at a Catholic school, all white, all girls, predominantly, yeah. So when I went to Finger, it was a total culture shock. I wasn't used to all of the loud talking and they were loud. To the point where I didn't go to class. I was scared. I was scared to death, but that was because my upbringing was more subtle. You know what I mean? It was bad.
And you can thank my
bad.
sister. You can thank my sister in her class for the switch over.
Yeah,
because they had to go up
I didn't understand
separate stairway.
anybody.
They had to go up a different stairway because of, their blessed pigmentation. So yeah, you gonna experience, and you want to train your kids and teach your kids everything. The emotional intelligence and social connection. Women tend to adapt at communicating, understanding emotions, and fostering community. They often employ attend and befriend response to stress, seeking social support and strengthening bonds. You know, usually you gotta call your girls if you're going through, you know, call your friends, talk to your friends when you're going through some trauma or a bad breakup, or celebrate things. We spoke about the resilience and the strength. Women are recognized for their fortitude, navigating challenges like birthplace inequality to achieve goals. They're often described as having incredible enduring strength and adaptability. You think about the different jobs you've had through your life and learning to, because people say things that's really stupid because you think, oh, you had to learn these different programs. Every job you have to learn their way of doing things. Even if now you may be well adapted, you know, knowledge in computers. When you go to a different company, you have to learn their programs. Because when I first started DCFS, we was on this one little basic thing. But when things start growing and we had a whole new program, we had to go 6 weeks to train on this. So we know how to navigate. And it doesn't matter, wherever you do, you have to learn to adapt and adjust yourself. With nurturing and care, often recognized for their maternal and caring instincts, women play a crucial role in raising children and caring for families. I've said it before, you know, you hear women who say, I don't want kids. And back in the day, we always used to say, oh, you'll change your mind. Don't you want to have kids? Don't you want to have kids? Oh, you want to have kids. I've changed my thoughts, my speaking, because working where I worked, and I often said this, just because you can don't mean you should. Everyone's not equipped to be a mother. You might be more equipped to be a good auntie or a good bestie, or because I had a coworker who says, you know, that she didn't want to have kids. I respect that. She said, look, I'm too selfish to be a mother. Because the first thing you tell when you used to back in the day, was like, it's not about you anymore. When you're a mother, it's not about you. That's the way they used to say. They don't say that too much anymore. But I respect when a woman says that and mean it. And you don't sit there and try to change their thoughts, because if you do, they might end up needing somebody that I used to work for. Because we used to talk about, we were probably the only ones who would be happy to get a pink slip and say, we no longer need this agency. We're going to close this agency down because we no longer need it, because this is not happening anymore. But we know that's going to happen, because life be lifing, and people deal with life, and something everybody cannot handle everything, and that support system is important. Things come up on you and it would knock you off your foundation, especially if your foundation wasn't built right. Because if you grew up, like we were saying earlier, if you grew up in chaos, that's all you know. Like you grew up in quiet schools and you go to a chaotic school. When I went to Carver, I'm like, good Lord. I didn't go to a Catholic grammar school, but we had a principal who was could have been a sergeant or a colonel in the military. She was very dictatorial. It would be quiet up in there. Coming through there, she would stand at the door and say, you're not dressed, go back home. Go back home and get changed that. Go back home and come back. And we couldn't wear pants. Only time we wore pants was dress down day. She knew your parents. She know your parents, and she did not have a problem calling your parents. But when I went to high school, good Lord, I'm like, they used to ask me, "You sanctified?" And I didn't know what sanctified was. I'm like, no, because, but because I didn't wear pants, no one, because I was used to wearing skirts and dresses. So, and my behavior, like goodness, getting on the bus at the end of the day was a feat. I think I can tell with my growth, because my freshman year, when we got on the bus, they were pushing so hard. A friend of mine, when she got up to the top, she didn't have a sweater on anymore. And they were pushing so much that I promise you, I literally was like this, flying. And I hit the ground just before a car. But by my senior year, I had that on lock. I was one of the first two on the bus. It's like, I learned, excuse me, your elbow's in my way. And you walking up under me, hey, I knew how to do it, but you learn to adapt because it was like Wild Kingdom. I'm like, good Lord, I'm not used to all of this crazy, because Mama ran a type ship. So, like I was saying, we talking about mothers, and we talking about women as well. So if you know of an unsung hero in the Bible that's not in the forefront, speak on her. If you know of an unsung hero woman in your life, tell us about it. Because like I say, whenever I spoke, I'm not here to do a lecture. We're here to discuss. So you may know somebody who just been an amazing woman in your life, who has carried you through, taught you, fed you some wonderful, wise words that you still pull on today. Talk about it. Mention her. And at the end of this month, the last Sunday of this month, we are going to have a presentation. We're going to end this month out with a presentation. And we want you to send us, Deacon Wiley will explain, I'm getting them to explain how to receive it. So we can do a presentation so you can honor that mother, that woman in your life who has fed you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It don't have to be something big. Even if you just put their face with their hearts or whatever, you can, do that. So we can end this month celebrating the women in our lives who have an impact on us. If it's your mother, wonderful. If you have a lot of women in your life that has fed into you, that have nurtured you, that is amazing. List them, name them, show them, honor them, because we want to honor them. Because get your flowers. I believe in giving your flowers. I said everyone is really quick to chastise somebody, but are you also, and I can chastise people, but I also feed you. I also compliment you. You do something great, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to always tear you down. If you do something wrong, I'm going to mention it. But if you do something great, I'm going to say it. If you can't say the good, then don't tell me anything bad, because I'm not all bad. Nobody's all bad. Some people got, some, redeeming qualities. Multitasking and memory. I do have a friend who says she cannot multitask. I could not have done my job if I could not multitask. It would not have been, nothing would have been done.
How to put it in. If you're a human being, you know how to multitask.
Yeah.
We can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. So
Yes.
everybody knows how to multitask. Sometimes we don't know the word
Right.
for it. And so then we start to compare ourselves to other people,
I think
and then
that's what it is.
that's what it is.
They know they have limitations or they can't do all of that.
Right.
Well, you never had to.
Right. And so if you got a job that you go to, or it's online, or however way it is, you multitasking. So everybody can multitask. You just don't know how and don't know how to direct it. And then there are some people that they function best
Right.
when they're multitasking. And then there are other people who can't necessarily focus. They have
Right.
to be in this one group right here, and then when I'm done with this, then I can move to that.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes it can be confusing sometimes when you
Yes.
are multitasking.
Yes. It's that focus you were speaking of. Because if you can't focus on, because I had a coworker come to in my office one day. He says, "You know, Kathy, this job is undoable." I said, "When did you discover that?" Because, you know, like I said, I work 10, 12-hour days on the regular, and there was always so much to do. And life is so much to do. And if you have kids, that's adding more. Because I didn't have any, so imagine with all that I had, and this, and that, and, that can be daunting. That can be daunting. And that's when you have to do self-care. And women, we don't do that. I had to learn. I'm still learning. We have to do that because, you know, say the word again, back in the day, women were just giving, and I'm going to speak on it later. They taught their daughters the same thing. That's your job to do for, to take care of, to help, to do. Because I used to be mad. You know, we in the house Saturday, we clean the house from top to bottom, looking for our brothers. Where? You know, they do the yard, but then how big is the yard? It wasn't that big. Oh, come on now. Come on. I'm gonna speak on that in another week. I'm going to speak on that in another week. Yeah, but come on, the truth is the truth. Tell the truth, shame the devil. Yes. We had to clean. I mean, like it was spring cleaning you know. So when it was spring cleaning, good Lord.
Well, when you said that, when I went to high school, I was the first. I'm the oldest, so I was the first one to go to high school. So when my mom married my stepfather, you know, we were in a house, and so it was me and my sister. There was a problem with the sewer system, and so every morning when we got up, here's the sewer in the basement before we got to go to school. So here's me and my sister. I got one brother, and he's the youngest. It was me and my sister that we had to clean that basement before we went to school. It was me and my sister who did the lawn, who did the lawn, mowed the lawn, and all this can on. So there was no thing. My brother didn't do nothing. To this day, that's how my brother is. My brother don't do nothing.
I mean, come on, the truth is the truth. The truth, no.
Listen, you say what you want to say. That's how it was like that, and that's the way it was. Now, let me say this. Let me get out my violin. It prepared me. So
It does.
It prepared me. So I know how to operate a lawnmower. It prepared me. I know how to pull up weeds. It prepared me. So I don't, if that's the way it was in my family, that's the way it was in a lot of families.
Yes.
And so that's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We needed a chair. If I'm just gonna say it, if we had one of the chairs broke, my mother would say, "Got to fix the chair."
See, it was all girls with us.
I
We
had
to
brothers,
we had
so
to
that
do
was
everything.
different.
Yeah.
But when you have brothers, and there was a crack in the wall, I was the one on that floor, fixing that crack in the wall, fixing the chairs. I was sitting on the floor, fixing the crack. No. They could have done it too, sat on that floor and fixed that crack. But I was the one doing it. Come on, tell the truth, shame the devil. Yes, that's the way it was. But we were prepared. Well, Well, they was in the house cleaning. They was in the house fixing things. They were in the house cooking and doing laundry. Yes. Well, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. We didn't have to go out there and hunt. Yes. Yes. We were, now, my father's from Little Rock, but, I'm from Chicago. So, it's a whole different situation. Women leadership and perspective. Women in leadership often bring different perspectives, utilizing communication and empathy to lead effectively. Many believe that women are special because they are uniquely created to be bearers and nurturers of life, bringing warmth, light, and value to the world. Like I say, women wear many hats. Women, we wear many hats. And we have to be, he put a lot in us. He put a lot in us. We're multifaceted. Our month. God loves women and men equally, but in the Bible, he goes out of his way to intentionally show his love. There are 187 women named in the Bible and many more mentioned without names. That's why I was saying if you can find an unsung hero that you see in the Bible, because I can think of one right now. Everyone talks about Job, but they never talks about Job's wife. Those were her kids too. She bore those kids, and she lost all of her kids. And had to have 10 more. So, when I thought about it, I was saying, those are her kids. She lost every one of her children you think about those of you who are parents. You carry that baby. And you can imagine losing one, but lose all of them. 10. And then she had to go through it all over again and have 10 more. No, didn't say that. And had to deal with a sick husband. So she... Right. So, and then going through all of that, she had to deal with a sick husband. She can't mourn her 10 kids. She got to take care of her sick husband.
Having 10 was a struggle. To have another 10, that's a whole nother struggle.
Come
I tell
on.
my grandma all the time. I used to tell my grandma, I said, oh, I don't know how you had 7 kids and all of them so close together. She said, the same way you got your one. I said, no, ma'am, it's a big difference. It's a big difference to have 7 kids and they all step babies. Like, that's bizarre. That's strength to me.
Because you think about when you have that one, you just got that one. But imagine having your 10th one. You pregnant with your 10th one, and then you got 9.
I could never imagine that. I used, you know what? Actually, I'll be honest. I did say it because I was the only child that I did want 10 kids because I didn't want. Yeah, that changed when my little cousins, her baby Terrence and my cousin Pooh. No, I used to have to beat them up every day. That was like my little brothers. I had no.
Well,
so
like,
that
I changed my mind.
Yeah. So it ran short with the 3. The 3, yeah. But no, mothers do carry a lot. We carry a lot as mothers because we have to just think about it, the birth and the children. Some people do that. We have to hold the household down. We have to carry, because men, when you're in a marriage, right, they go out, they go out and work, but 9 times out of 10, the woman is holding the house down, the kids down, the this down, the this down. We carry a whole lot. What you say? I'm sorry. So it is, and I'm that person that believes this role. Every person has their own role. I'm not taking out the garbage. I think men should do that. Like, if it's a man in the house, the man should take out the garbage, right? I'm not gonna get up in the ceiling and fix the roof. I think a man should do that, right?
Right.
I think everything has a place for everything, but women, we do carry a lot because
Yes.
we the backbone. We have to
Right.
make sure
The
everything is
foundation,
flowing
yes.
together. And the problem with the generation that we have now is the the mothers are younger, and they don't have that person on them telling them you shouldn't let your child do this, you should do this, you should do this. And mothers typically are their friends, their child's friend now.
Now-
So that's where we're losing a lot of the discipline and the structure in the home. So the mother's out partying at 35,
and the training, exactly.
and the children outside doing the same thing. So how can you watch your children or
Right.
discipline your child if you're not at home to see what they're doing? So we losing a lot because the mothers are getting younger and younger, and the older generation, which leads us and guide us. Like my grandmother, my mother, and my aunts told me, this is what you do. You know what I'm saying? You have a baby, you don't come out for 6 weeks.
Right.
They don't get that no more. The babies be outside the next day. So it's no structure, it's no guidance for these people. So that's why the kids is running amok in the street.
And they don't realize that, because I had a neighbor, and I really looked, I'm like, she had another baby, and they say, no, that was another, and those babies would be coming out there quick. And I met, she was 16, she was like 16, I'm like, who are you? She said, this is, I ain't see you running, where did you come from? I've seen you, but I've met grandmothers. Like I said, I asked, and they thought I was wrong for putting this request in, because they were going to send the grandchildren to the grandparent. I said, I want grandmama to do a drop. They were like, well, Kathy, I says, I want grandmama to do a drop. And I had to go to grandma and tell her she cannot get her grandkids because she had a bad drop. And there was and I think about when my mother says, I'm not going to put my kids through what she went through, because like I said, she was under Bishop, so there was church every day. She didn't want to put us through that, but she did teach us the word. So it's like we didn't learn the word or learn about the Lord. But then you have some people like, well, my mother was strict, I'm not going to do that to my kids. But so they take that pendulum and take it all the way onto the other side. And instead of being somewhere in the middle, they take it all the way. And then that child don't know anything. And then they have a child, so that child don't know anything because where they going to learn? And they say, they make grandmamas anymore because grandmama's like, I'm not taking care of your kids because they still doing their thing because they were not taught the way they were in the past, because that parent decided, I'm not going to discipline my kids or train my kids to do to my kids what was done to me. But they don't realize that we were talking about foundations earlier. They built that foundation. And if you don't have a stern foundation, it will collapse. And that's what's happening. You get so many kids who just out there without any training, without any foundation. So they don't know, they're just out there just willy-nilly. Yes. And it's sad because you can't grow, you can't build on that because it's weak. It's weak. Just like I was talking about my high school, it's going to keep falling because there's no foundation to hold it. And when the storm comes, what happens? It collapses. Because life be life, and in that life, that's the storm. Things come up and you can't handle it because you weren't given that foundation, because your mama or grandmama was tough and you don't want to be like that to yours. So instead of doing some things, you do nothing. And then they be like, okay, so then they don't realize. And Medea, Big Mama, they not here anymore. And you try to send your bad kid to Big Mama down south or wherever, she too tired and old to do what's needed to be done that you should have done. They don't do that anymore. They don't do that anymore. I never got to switch, but what I got was enough. So So like I said, this month we're talking about Mother's Day falls in this month. And like I said, I have a sister-in-law who celebrates the whole month of June for her birthday. So we're going to celebrate the whole month of May for women, for mothers. And next week is Mother's Day, so we're going to talk about mothers. But at the end of this month, we're going to end this month out with the presentation. So if there's someone in your life who's an unsung hero, someone in your life who had an impact on your life, whether it was your mother, a friend, or someone who fed into you, get that together. Deacon Wiley, I'm going to get him to tell us how he wants it because it will go into him. So we can end this with a presentation to celebrate. Give people flowers. So God bless you and have a blessed day. Oh, 10 o'clock, you got a little time to get here. Best experience you can have in your life. 354 West 71st Street, 71st and Stewart. So come on by and may the Lord bless you.